Fujimori dies at 86. Biden wears Trump hat as unity gesture. Clashes outside Congress after pension rise. This and many more to come your way in a moment. Please do stay with us. And now the news in details. We begin with Africa as always. Malawi farmers, including Emily Nkana, have discovered a profitable use for overripe bananas by making banana wine. This was due to extreme heat causing bananas to ripen too quickly, causing heavy losses for farmers in Karonga district. The process involves peeling lemons to preserve the taste of bananas at Sweetule Cooperative Group's processing plant. The farmers' success is not just about making wine, but also survival, resilience, and embracing new possibilities in a changing climate. Hundreds of passengers have been stranded at Kenya's main airport after workers went on strike in protest at a planned takeover by an Indian business group. Large queues were seen formed outside Nairobi's Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, JKIA, on Wednesday morning as flights were delayed and cancelled. Union leaders on Wednesday evening said they would return to work and that normal operations will resume shortly. Workers launched their protest over a proposal to lease JKIA to the Adani Group for 30 years. The Aviation Workers Union argues the deal is opaque and could lead to in Kenya's capital, Nairobi, on Wednesday morning. Hundreds of passengers have been stranded at Kenya's main airport after workers went on a strike at a planned takeover by an Indian business group. Large queues formed outside Nairobi's Jomo Kenyatta International Airport on Wednesday morning as flights were delayed and cancelled. The unions agreed to return to work after being given assurances that the deal with Adani would not be finalized without their approval. The government says the airport in the capital, Nairobi, is operating beyond capacity and needs private investment to upgrade it. On Wednesday morning, dozens of airport workers blew plastic trumpets and chanted, "Adani must go," according to footage shown on local broadcaster TV. The video also appeared to show a police officer hitting a protester with a baton. Wilma Van Altena, who was on holiday in Kenya but got her trip short to return to the Netherlands for a funeral, was among those stuck at the airport. The Zimbabwe's men's football team are also stranded. The squad had flown into Nairobi after an African Cup of Nations qualifier game in Uganda, but had been given no information about their onward flight to Harare. An official who did not want his name to be mentioned told newsmen Sudan's warring parties had committed harrowing human rights violations against civilians, the UN mission reported. Thousands of people have been killed and nearly 8 million displaced since conflicts broke out in April 2023 between the army and the paramilitary rapid support forces. The two had jointly staged a coup but then fell out, plunging Sudan into a civil war. The fact-finding mission also called for an arms embargo to be imposed on both sides involved in the conflict. It reported its findings after obtaining first-hand testimony from 182 survivors, family members, and eyewitnesses. The United Arab Emirates is accused of supporting the rapid support forces with the strengthening of ties. Egypt plans to send 5,000 soldiers to join a new African Union force in Somalia at the end of the year, with another 5,000 deployed separately. The force has been in Somalia since 2007 to help fight Al-Shabaab, a jihadist group. Ethiopian troops are part of the force, but Somalia will withdraw next year. Egypt accuses Ethiopia of threatening its water from the River Nile following the construction of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance. Peru's former president Alberto Fujimori, who was convicted of human rights abuses and corruption, has died aged 86. His daughter has confirmed this morning. Fujimori governed Peru between 1990 and 2000 before being forced from office amid allegations of corruptions. His tough stance against the left-wing guerrilla insurgency, while president also brought allegations of abuses. But his supporters praised him for defeating the rebels at a time when they looked likely to seize power. He fled the country but was subsequently arrested and extradited before being convicted and jailed, according to reports. His daughter Keiko Fujimori posted on social media to say the former president had died after a long battle with cancer. Fujimori's doctor confirmed he had died of tongue cancer. The former president was convicted in a number of cases, including corruption, abuse of power, and being behind 2 death squad massacres in the early 1990s. President Joe Biden briefly wore a red Trump campaign heart at an event commemorating the 23rd anniversary of the 11th night attacks. He was visiting firefighters in Pennsylvania, near where one of the 4 hijacked planes crashed, and the White House said the he donned the cap as a gesture of unity. Video recording the incident shows the president having a friendly conversation with a Trump supporter before the swap headwear. Donald Trump's campaign was quick to see the funny side. The event in Shanksville commemorated Flight 93, which was hijacked by terrorists in 2001. Passengers aboard the flight fought back and prevented a plan by Al-Qaeda to crash the plane into a government building in Washington, D.C. All 40 aboard died. Biden greeted firefighters and paid respects at a cross made from the broken fuselage. Footage inside the fire station posted on social media shows Biden chatting with people and interacting with a man wearing a red hat with Trump 2024 emblazoned on the front. U.S. ultra-endurance cyclist has claimed a new world record for fastest woman to circumnavigate the globe by bike. Lil Wilcox took 108 days, 12 hours and 12 minutes to cycle 29,169 kilometers. Starting and ending in Chicago. She beats the 2018 record held by Jenny Graham from Scotland, whose journey took 124 days, 11 hours. Wilcox, 38 years old of Alaska, set off on 28 May, crossing 21 countries and 4 continents before arriving back in Chicago around 11 p.m. on Wednesday. She cycled up to 14 hours a day on her journey, which will now be verified for inclusion in the Guinness Book of World Records. Experts estimate ultra-endurance cyclists can burn anywhere from 6,000 to 10,000 calories a day on their bikes. She just has such incredible physical stamina, mental toughness, and just sheer determination to go out and do these extreme efforts, said Anne-Marie J. Brooke, North American editor at Cycling Week magazine. Wilcox was the first female rider to win the Trans Am, a 4,000-mile race cross across the length of the U.S. She has also set records in the Tour Divide, a grueling race traversing the American Continental Divide along the Rocky Mountains, while her latest record is billed as Ride Around the World. Guinness rules also require riders to start and end in the same place, always traveling in the same direction. The rider's entire journey, including flights, ferries, and public transit, must equal a total distance equivalent to 40,000 kilometers, the circumference of the Earth's equator. The minimum distance traveled by bicycle must surpass 28,970 kilometers. After pushing off from Chicago, Wilcox headed for New York, where she boarded a flight to Portugal. She then spent several weeks journeying north to Amsterdam, down through Germany, across the Alps, into the Balkans, across Turkey to Georgia. She then flew to Australia, riding from Perth along the southern coast to Brisbane, where she hopped on a flight to New Zealand. After covering both islands, she flew to her hometown of Beach, pedaled along the Pacific coast to Los Angeles, then took Route 66 to Chicago. U.S. government is pursuing a trial against Alphabet, the parent company of Google, who is illegally operating a monopoly in the lucrative ad tech industry. Alphabet earned over $200 billion last year through user-generated ads. Prosecutors argue that Alphabet has used its market dominance to stifle rivals, claiming its success is due to its services' effectiveness. Google is facing a second major antitrust case in the U.S. following a judge's ruling in August that its dominance of search was illegal. The lawsuit filed by the Department of Justice and a coalition of states claims that Google dominates the digital marketplace and has used its market power to stifle innovation and competition. Google argues that competition in the digital ad space is growing, citing increased ad growth and revenues for companies like Apple, Amazon, and TikTok. Both sides will present their cases to U.S. District Judge Leonie Brinkema, who is expected to deliver a verdict. The bench trial comes on the heels of a landmark decision last month in a different police by the Justice Department against Google. Judge Amit ruled that Google acted illegally to squelch competition in its online search business. Google is defending its AdTech case against the U.S. Department of Justice for monopolizing online search due to its superior product. The company referred to its 2023 blog post stating that no one is forced to use their advertising technologies. They choose to use them because they are effective. Judge Mehta is beginning the process of deciding on remedies for Google's conduct, with Dan Ives expecting business model tweaks rather than a company breakup. The complex process governing advertising technology could make it difficult for the Department of Justice to prove its case. The U.S. is not the only country where regulators are unhappy with Google's AdTech business. On Friday, the UK Competition and Markets Authority said it believed Google was abusing its dominance in the AdTech industry, according to the findings of its initial investigation. It found that Google used anti-competitive practices to dominate the market for online advertising technology, and the potentially unlawful behavior could be harming thousands of UK publishers and advertisers. However, Google representatives said the decision was based on a flawed understanding of the AdTech sector. There have been fierce clashes between protesters and police in Buenos Aires after thousands of people gathered outside Argentina's Congress to demonstrate against the president's veto of a rise in pensions. Video shows protesters, many of them pensioners, tearing down fences and entering the Congress area before officers fired pepper spray and rubber bullets in an attempt to disperse the crowd. Politicians supporting the pension rise failed to win the two-thirds majority needed to override President Javier Milei's veto. Milei is trying to pass a series of austerity measures to overturn years of high inflation and public debt in Argentina, according to reports. He has defended harsh fiscal measures as necessary to fix the economy. Rapper Kendrick Lamar will headline the Super Bowl halftime show, marking his first appearance as the main act, marking his second Grammy and Pulitzer Prize-winning performance at one of the most prestigious music events. The Super Bowl will be held on 9th of February 2022 in New Orleans, Louisiana. The most impactful genre, according to rapper Lamar. He performed at the 2022 Super Bowl in New Orleans, where he performed alongside Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Eminem, and Mary J. Blige, earning an Emmy Award for Outstanding Variety Special. The Compton-born rapper, 37 years old, is known for being one of the most inventive lyricists in the hip-hop genre. In 2018, he became the first hip-hop artist to win the Pulitzer Prize for Music. National Football League head of music Seth Dudowski praised Kendrick Lamar's ability to create memorable moments in hip-hop, while Lamar faced controversy over a public feud with Canadian rapper Drake, which led to the release of diss tracks earlier this year. Two of the tracks with contributions from Lamar became major hits, including Future and Metro Booming's Like That, and Lamar's own Not Like Us. Artists like Rihanna, Usher, Beyonce, the Rolling Stones and Bruce Springsteen are among the other major artists to have performed at the sports event. The Super Bowl is the biggest sports event in the U.S., drawing tens of millions of viewers, as well as being broadcast around the world. You're watching the international news on Atlantic Television Network. We'll be back after this short break. Please do stay with us. Welcome back to the broadcast of the international news on Atlantic Television Network. We are open for adverts, placements, bookings, and commercials. And you can connect with us and watch us on ATN socials, Facebook and YouTube at Atlantic Television Network, Instagram and X, formerly Twitter, Atlantic Network.tv. And on to the rest of our stories. Former President Donald Trump has threatened to jail those involved in unscrupulous behavior in the upcoming election, threatening to use the office of the presidency to exact retribution if he wins a second term. Trump's warning extends to lawyers, political operators, donors, illegal voters, and corrupt election officials. He claims that cheating exposure will extend to levels never seen before in the country. There is no evidence of fraud in 2020 election, and dozens of courts, Republican state officials, and his own administration have said he lost fairly. Trump acknowledged in a podcast interview that he had indeed lost by a whisker. Trump has shifted his focus from focusing on his campaign aides and allies to addressing past allegations of sexual misconduct, despite denying them. He has also turned to his legal woes, focusing on his indictments and Russia's 2016 election. Trump has eschewed traditional debate preparation, holding rallies and events while Harris is cloistered in a historic Pittsburgh hotel. There is no evidence that President Joe Biden or Harris have had any influence over decisions by the Justice Department or state prosecutors to indict the former president. Trump and Hillary Clinton debate were and cuts the fat out of the government for the first time meaningfully in 60 years. He also announced the creation of a new Government Efficiency Commission headed by Elon Musk to conduct a complete financial and performance audit of the federal government. Trump also promised to review the cases optimized by the Harris regime and signed the pardons on his first day back in office. Both candidates have been frequent visitors to Wisconsin. The past 6 presidential elections have been decided by less than a percentage point. Harris, who Dick Cheney, and his daughter Liz Cheney said that the main message at the debates would be that the country wants to be united and chart a new way forward. Trump delivered a speech at a rally in Wisconsin criticizing Kamala Harris and the Democrats' border policies. He criticized as suicidal and accused them of importing murderers, child predators, and serial rapists from all over the world. Trump dismissed warnings about Russian attempts to spread disinformation ahead of the November election, stating that the Justice Department had indicted a media company linked to 6 conservative influencers. Supporters include Dale Osultzin hoped a second Trump administration will take on cancel culture and bring the country back to its foundational past. Democrats have relied on 2 largest cities to counter Republican strength in rural areas. Proposal on judicial reform that critics its edge closer to approval when senators late in Sunday backed it at the commission stage. Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador has proposed a reform that would elect over 7,000 judges and magistrates by popular vote, a vote critical executive branch power. The proposal has been approved by the Chamber of Deputies and is set for debate and final Senate vote. In the Senate, the ruling party and its allies need just 1 opposition senator to secure the reform's passage. Opposition senators have vowed to vote against the measure. During Sunday's debate, Supreme Court's President Norma Pena called on legislatures to listen to proposals by the judges before backing any change. Civilian groups and university students opposed to the reform have staged multi-day protests around the cities across Mexico, which has the 2nd largest economy in Latin America. Other protesters took to the streets to show their support for the reform and for the president. Authorities have reported no incident at the protest. López Obrador has said the reform. Mexico's lower house approved the reform last Wednesday after a marathon session. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez is set to meet Chinese President Xi Jinping on Monday amid escalating trade tensions between the EU and China. Beijing is preparing to react to Spanish authors in PAC if Brussels imposes tariffs. Spain exported 1.5 billion worth of PAC products to China in 2023, surpassing the combined exports of the Netherlands. The Liberian state also sold under $50 million worth of targeted dairy products to China last year. Sanchez's global momentum strengthened economic support Spanish culture, education and science in China, according to reports. Spanish Prime Minister Manuel Sanchez is scheduled to meet with Chinese President Xi and attend business forums in Beijing and Shanghai. He is seeking assurance that China will not raise tariffs gasoline-powered vehicles, which could impact SIT, a Volkswagen-owned automaker. The broader bloc hopes Sanchez and reduce tensions by examining whether European brandy and palm copolymers, a type of manufacturing plastic, are sold below market rates. State-owned newspaper said that it was important that China and Spain can have constructive communication on trade issues, citing Zhao Zhongji, an academic affiliated with the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences. Zhao also hoped that Sanchez's visit would make clear the notion to the EU that trade frictions in a few years cannot represent the big picture and should not be a hurdle to bilateral relations. China is urging EU member states to reject the European Commission's proposal to impose additional duties on Chinese-made electric vehicles (EVs) unless a majority of 15 EU members, representing 65% of the population, votes against it. Spain, France, Italy, Germany, Finland and Sweden supported the tariffs in an advisory vote in July. A busy bridge in northern Vietnam has collapsed in the wake of Super Typhoon Yagi, plunging 10 cars and 2 scooters into the Red River. Deputy Prime Minister Ho Duk-Fook said it is unclear if there were casualties resulting from the collapse of the Phuong Chok Bridge in Phu Tho Province. At least 3 people have been rescued and 13 are missing. Mr. Ho said Vietnam's President Ho Chi Minh has ordered the military to build a pontoon bridge after a powerful storm. Yagi killed at least 59 people and caused landslides and flash floods. The storm has also injured over 240 people and left 1.5 million without power. The 375-meter bridge remains standing, and the country's Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development reported 44 deaths and a newborn baby. Yagi also sunk and swept adrift dozens of fishing boats, and search and rescue personnel found 27 people drifting at sea after a dozen fishermen were reported missing. ATN gathered that nearly 50,000 people have been evacuated from coastal towns in Vietnam, with authorities issuing a warning to remain indoors. Schools were temporarily closed in 12 northern provinces, including Hanoi, before hitting Vietnam. Yagi left 4 people dead across southern China and the Philippines. Scientists say typhoons and hurricanes are becoming stronger, more frequent and staying over land for longer due to climate change. Warmer ocean waters mean storm picks up more energy, which leads to higher speed. A warmer atmosphere also holds more moisture, which can lead to more intense rainfall, according to report. Pope Francis was welcomed in Weimar on the coast, where he donned a traditional bed of paradise feathered hedge. He came to Weimar at the invitation of local missionaries with the Catholic Institute of the Incarnate Word. The like Pope Francis, the first pontiff from the Americas, are from Argentina. Earlier, he celebrated Mass in the capital, Port Moresby, which was attended by at least 35,000 people. Pope Francis is visiting Papua New Guinea until Monday as part of a tour that first included a stop in Indonesia. He travels next to East Timor, then Singapore, before returning to Rome. The U.S. Department of Justice charged Filipino businessman with sex trafficking, fraud, coercion, and bulk cash smuggling. He forced girls and women to solicit money for a charity and required assistance to have sex, according to report. After Duterte stepped down, he was charged with child abuse, sexual abuse, and human trafficking. Police have been battling followers of Pastor Quibalai in a standoff at his 30-hectare compound in Davao for 2 weeks. Quibalai was found inside the compound's Bible school and arrested, despite not surrendering, according to Interior Minister Benhun Abalos. Witness provided crucial information. Quibalai, a pastor in the Philippines, was arrested by the regional police chief and for audit. The arrest follows a public falling out between the Marcos and Duterte political families. The standoff of the Kingdom of Jesus Christ has occurred as the Marcos and Duterte families have been feuding. The Philippines is not considering extraditing Quibalai for now, as the U.S. Dutch sought his arrest before Duterte handed power to him. Quibalai founded the Kingdom of Jesus Christ in Davao in 1985 after hearing God's message. He delivered sermons from his Garden of Eden, according to him. Quibalai also gained political influence by endorsing candidates during practice common in the Philippines, where politics is based on patronage. Sitaram Yechury, the leader of India's largest communist party, has died at the age of 72. He was being treated for an acute. Several politicians, including main opposition leader Rahul Gandhi and former rival Mamata Banerjee, have paid their tributes. Yechury started his political career as a student leader with the left-wing Student Federation of India. He was arrested during the emergency in 1975 when the Congress government led by Indira Gandhi enforced the widespread curtailment of civil liberties. After his release, he went on to become the president of Delhi's Jawaharlal Nehru University, where he studied economics. He played an especially significant role during the peak years of coalition politics, when the stability of India's federal governments depended on bringing together disparate ideologies and priorities. In 1996, he played a leading role in forming a coalition of 13 parties, which governed India for nearly 2 years, with two Prime Ministers, H.D. Dev Gowda and K. Kujiri. Sharing the tenure in 2014, Yechury's party won a historic 44 seats in the parliamentary election. The left parties include the CPI, then supported the Congress-led government from outside, a term used for supporting the administration without taking ministerial roles. But in 2008, they withdrew their support as a protest against the Indo-US nuclear deal, which required India to place its civil nuclear facilities under the watch of the International Atomic Energy Agency in exchange for full civil nuclear cooperation with the United States. The left's decision was controversial and seen by many as questionable, as it failed to repeat its 2004 electoral success. By the time Yechury became the CPI's General Secretary in 2015, the party had lost many of its former strongholds, including West Bengal State, and its parliamentary seats were on the decline. He was a member of the Rajya Sabha, or the upper house of parliament, from 2005 to 2017. Congress leader Rahul Gandhi, with whom Yechury shared a warm relationship, called him a friend while paying his tribute. India's Supreme Court ordered all doctors protesting over the rape and murder of a female medic last month to resume work by Tuesday, warning that they may face adverse action if they fail to adhere to the deadline. Hundreds of doctors nationwide have stayed off work as they demand justice for the woman, whose body was found on August 9 in a classroom at R.G. Kak Medical College and Hospital in Kolkata, in the eastern state of West Bengal, where she was a trainee. A police volunteer was arrested for the crime, and federal police said last week that the former principal of the college had also been arrested for alleged graft. Doctors have also been demanding better amenities in government-run hospitals, which they say lack security and basic infrastructure, such as resting spaces for staff. The Supreme Court on Monday said that no adverse action would be taken against doctors who return to work by Tuesday evening. The court also directed the West Bengal government to take steps to assure debtors of their concerns being addressed, including by providing separate duty rooms and toilets for male and female personnel, and installing a CCTV footage cameras. Demonstrations over the attacks spread beyond India's borders over the weekend, as thousands of diaspora Indians protested in more than 130 cities across 25 countries, including Japan, Australia, Europe, and the US. The court, which took up the matter of its own accord following outrage over the incident, had earlier formed a hospital safety task force to recommend steps to ensure the safety of medical workers. Dmitry Luksha built up muscles breaking rocks in a Belarusian prison camp, put to work alongside men convicted of murder and drug smuggling. The journalist was imprisoned in 2022 and sentenced to 4 years for his reports on the mass opposition protests of 2020 and his country's later complicity in the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. But he's just been released early, one of several political prisoners freed this summer in a series of surprise amnesties. It's giving hope to the relatives of others that further releases might follow. Human rights organization Vyasna calculates that 78 political detainees have been given an amnesty so far in recent weeks. Many have serious medical conditions, but not all of them. The criteria for early release is unknown. Like everyone, Dmitry first had to request an official pardon from Belarus leader Alexander Lukashenko. 4 years ago, the authoritarian leader was almost forced from power by enormous street protests, which were eventually crushed with police brutality and mass arrests. And with Russian political support, with another election due next year, perhaps as soon as February, it is possible Lukashenko is hoping for an image boost. State propaganda channels have been presenting the amnesties as a humane gesture by a wise leader. Russia has claimed control of a town in eastern Ukraine, Novorodivka, as Moscow's forces advance on Pokrovsk and aim to pierce Ukrainian defensive lines. Russia controls about a fifth of Ukraine since invading in February 2022 and is attempting to take the entire Donbas region, which is half the size of Ohio. Russia said that its forces had taken full control of a town in eastern Ukraine. The Ukrainian military reported fighting in the Pokrovsk sector, including Novorodivka, with 29 Russian advances repelled and 7 skirmishes ongoing. However, an interview with a Ukrainian officer claimed that Ukrainian forces abandoned Novorodivka due to unfavorable defending positions. Russian forces also captured Novelsky. President Putin said a Ukrainian incursion into Kursk had weakened Kyiv's defenses, benefiting Moscow. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said the Kursk operation was also to prevent Russian forces from crossing the border in the opposite direction. Russia currently controls about 80% of Donbas, given the speed of recent Russian advances in the east. Some Russian war bloggers have raised concerns about the army overreaching it, putting under tens of thousands of troops into Ukraine more than 2.5 years ago in what he calls a special military operation. Ukraine and its Western backers have vowed to defeat Russian forces and expel all Russian troops. Britain's labour market cooled noticeably last month as job placements fell sharply and pay growth slowed, according to a survey of recruiters on Monday. That could bolster the case for interest rate cuts from the Bank of England. The monthly reports on jobs from the Recruitment and Employment Confederation trade body and accountants showed permanent job placements drop at the fastest pace in 5 months. Starting pay growth from permanent staff also fell to a 5-month low, one of the weakest readings since early 2021. John Holt, Employment Confederation's UK Chief Executive and Senior Partner, said business confidence continued to fluctuate despite an interest rate cut from the Bank of England last month. The news that while salaries rose last month, it was at the weakest rate since March could help make the case for more rate cuts when the Monetary Policy Committee meets to decide the future path of interest rates, Holt said. The vast majority of economists polled by media think the Bank of Industry will wait until November to reduce interest rates again, although financial markets currently show a 1 in 4 chance of rate cut on September 19. Official labor markets data on Tuesday are expected to show robust employment growth and a further moderation in pay growth. And that's it on the international news for today. Before we go, another look at the major stories. We told you that passengers are stranded after strike at main airport. Banana wine brings sweet taste of success. Former Peruvian leader Alberto Fujimori dies at 86. Biden wears Trump's hat as unity gesture. Clashes outside Congress after pension rise. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I am Victor Peter. You can follow us on our social media platforms, X, formerly Twitter, at Atlantic TV Net, Facebook and YouTube at Atlantic Television Network, Instagram at Atlantic TV Network. Watch us live on our website, atlanticnetwork.tv. Peace and unity are the pathways to progress. Business news comes up next. Stay with us.